Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Leadership with a Twist. I'm your host, Heather McGonigal, and I'm here with my co-host, Barbara Schindler.
Hi,
Hi,
everybody. Hi, Heather.
Barbara. And today we're going to talk about finding your way through the noise. It is really, really noisy out there. There's a lot of chatter about a lot of different things in the zeitgeist, in the business world, entrepreneurially, and everywhere. There's a lot of talk about AI, this and that. Oh, just everything. Everything feels a lot of chatter, a lot of other things going on, and it is noisy out there. So Barbara and I want to help you find your way through the noise. And today that's what we're going to talk about. And it's all about helping you find your way through the noise and develop your intuition.
Yeah, and that inner guidance, that sense of knowing yourself enough to be discerning. So many people are in places of transition right now, whether they're making small decisions, where do I go for the holiday, to much bigger decisions about their career. Not every even like changing their jobs or role, but so much as like, you know, how can I perform better? How can I overcome some of the habits that are in the way? Um, Having a better flow in my day. So many places are finding themselves a little short-handed on team, right? So people are stretched a little bit as a human resource in getting things done, as well as they're finding that their paychecks aren't necessarily helping them meet the level of their lifestyle that's important. So they have to make decisions, and those decisions is where we start hearing a lot of noise. Like, how do I know if this is an old habit or a good new path? And how do I know if that idea or this or that or
And
whatever else is
how do I
coming
just
at me?
navigating everything in a way that feels grounded, connected, in a way that I'm being true to me and
Yes, because
authentic?
I authenticity is so essential today for everybody to get that. And I think jumping in here, it's like a lot of people we're coaching right now, Heather, you and I both are finding like not feeling like they're understood or heard properly. Like some of that is part of the navigating. And the key piece of that is getting to know yourself better.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
part of that is what leads us into really being able to follow our intuition.
And intuition might be this word that feels a little woo woo or out there or like not have a place in business, but it does. That's old thinking, an old paradigm, an old way. And the truth is, we definitely want to bust through any of that. And because human beings need, for their own health and happiness, to
Mm,
be in alignment with their intuition. We all have intuitive knowing. We are human beings with an inner guidance system. And when we are out of alignment with that, when everything is bombarding us so much that we cannot listen within, we do not feel well. We do not function well. We are meant to be able to listen within and check with our inner guidance and know what's working for us, what's not working for us, how we're really feeling in different scenarios, what choices we want to make. We're meant to listen to this internal guidance system that we have as human beings. We all have it. And
right.
so, right? So I just want to break through um any stigmatism, any weirdness around any of that and just say stop it.
Well,
Like,
because intuition, as you said, is part of our human nature.
yes.
Okay, and it's very important. I know Heather, you've heard me talk about this lately. Homegrown wisdom, right?
Yes.
Like so often, for many different reasons. It might be that someone wasn't raised in an environment that really nurtured their own creativity, their own instincts, their own self-guidance in a sense, or we get a lot of noise in our social situations that might say somebody else has the answer. There's the
Mm,
answer,
right.
right?
Out
And
there.
outside of yourself, somebody else, and that starts putting pressure on an individual to think, oh, who am I to think that this idea that's coming up for me, for my business, for my role, for myself, whatever, is a good idea. But if we don't tap into that, we're losing that authenticity that we uniquely can bring to any situation. And the first situation we're highly talking about today is your own situation, right? Your own life, your own role in your business career, in your personal life, the path that you're on. Many people today, again, with the economy being challenging, not just in the US, people everywhere are finding this crunch right now. And it's just like, well, it's really hard to change an established lifestyle. I'm not saying a lavish one. We can all be like, oh, I have a pair of boots. I don't need a new pair of boots kind of thing. But a certain rhythm of how we find our lives working for us includes things that, are how we're set up to live our daily life. Some of that is behavioral and some of that is material. And all of that comes from our own values and our own sense of self. And our inner guidance, our intuition, is the best resource to stay grounded in your true self, matching, am I living my values? Am I on the path of what I truly desire? How I envision my world to be able to contribute and be self expressive in a true manner? That comes from within more than from outside.
And we really have to learn to develop this habit of listening within.
So, how do you do that, Heather? Give us one way, because there's many paths to being still and recognizing. Just one way.
I think we have to start with a mindful intention of building the habit.
Okay.
So you could start with Barbara and I today. If listening to this episode sparks your interest and you notice, well, yeah, I could really, I don't know if I listen to my intuition. I don't know if I have a good relationship of listening within and listening to my intuition. If that's where you are today as you listen to this episode of us discussing this, then I would invite you today to build a habit by starting a 30-day practice of mindfully listening to your intuition. And I would do that by at the start or end of your day. And I would decide that by whether you're a morning person or an evening person. I am an evening person for adding habits and rituals. I would say Barbara's probably more of a morning person.
Mhm.
And so, depending on what type of person you are, as to when it's best for you to add in new habits, then I would add a habit where for 30 days you're going to practice by either starting or ending your day by taking 5 minutes to sit quietly and listen within in a meditative space, just to be with yourself and listen within. How am I doing?
And I love that, because there does need to be a practice,
Yeah.
right? There needs to be a practice to build up a habit and to even discern, what's happening if I pause 5 minutes a day and center and listen within. And maybe in that 30 days, once a week, you take some inner wisdom guidance and intuition on what color to paint your, I don't
Yeah, it's
know,
like when
some,
you could
uh,
actually you'll get some information and
right,
you could
actually apply it and see how it goes. Is
yes.
my point. I was trying to think of an example that wouldn't be. I was like, paint my room. Well, that's probably too big. Maybe that's okay, but yeah, might have to repaint it. So some of that part of that is, am I making an emotional decision? And so the more you also practice centering yourself and being still on a regular basis, you can start witnessing how your emotions just move like a cloud in the sky. And sometimes when we're moving fast and not paying attention inwardly, we're using our got to make an answer, got to make a decision, then we might be making emotional decisions. And that is one of the things that sometimes people less trust their own inner thinking because they've made some emotional decisions. But if you're grounding yourself centered, being present, and listening within on a regular basis, you're going to start noticing the fleeting thoughts versus that visceral sense of knowing that starts coming forward when you truly listen within. So I was like just practicing some different ways of acting on your
Yeah,
inner
I think
wisdom.
if you were just starting this 30-day habit, what I would do is journal right after this 5 minutes and just really journal what's coming up. What are some thoughts that I had during this 5 minutes of quiet time listening within? Like what's coming up for me? Hey, and so you're just starting to listen to this voice. You're not even committing to taking any action. You're just learning to listen what's coming up within so that you can notice like what are the complaints that ebb and flow and what are the solid things that really stick like huh, I guess I really do want to change where I live because for 30 days, it really, really stuck with my intuition that I think I really don't like my apartment. I had ongoing complaints and issues with the apartment, and it's not feeling like my forever home. That
Yeah.
came up for me for 30 days, right? So then I might take some forward action around changing that. Yes, Barbara.
And sometimes when you're witnessing a thread like that, what starts happening, or you can even ask in that quiet space, is, well, what am I yearning for?
Yes.
This isn't working comes up. And then in that same space, you can be, well, then what is it that would be more pleasing? What is it that I'm really seeking? And that discernment starts happening to also balance how real this is for you.
And I
Um,
think what's powerful here is that you're going from not listening to your intuition to building an open channel here, a dialogue where your intuition, all of a sudden, now you're listening. Now, that voice of intuition is going to start getting clearer to you and you're going to start to be able to discern. Barbara, I notice you're using that word discern a lot because we have to practice, we have to sit in the stillness and build our awareness, um, to be able to discern what is the noise and the chatter and the ego mind and the influences of our family and the outside world and our boss's voice and our career goals, and what is that still small voice of my inner wisdom and knowing and what I really want and desire for myself, right? So you're learning to discern your inner truth, your heart's desire, that true voice of your intuition. And you're going to be sorting through that and discerning what that true voice is, right? So it's going to be a process of listening, and that voice is going to get stronger by how you're now listening, paying attention, and being able to hear. And so you're then strengthening your relationship to hearing that intuitive voice. And so then you're going to get more intuitive hits. And then this practice that, again, Barbara and I are inviting you to do at either the start or the end of the day, whatever works best for you, is also then going to support you when you're back in your life out in the world outside of this 5-minute practice. You'll be driving your car, heading somewhere, and you'll get different intuitive hits. Go this way, don't go that way. Hey, why don't you call this friend you haven't spoken to in a while and check in with them? Or go do this thing. Or, hey, you used to love doing this. Other things are going to start bubbling up once you're connecting more to the voice of your intuition, of your inner knowing.
And I love that you're emphasizing this step of discernment in our mindful practice that we teach to our clients and in our coaching and training. That first part is just shifting to realize that something's going on inside you enough to listen. And then the second step is you hear a lot, right? So the third step often is a step that we forget to pause in and we go right to action. So the discernment piece that you're emphasizing here, Heather, is so important because it's like, okay, I'm hearing this. Let me play that out for a moment. Let me pause and listen deeper. Let me, check in if that matches my values and the goals that I'm seeking to achieve. And so there's a level of experience that's an inward process. Does not have to take hours, but it's a process of a step to before making a decision, taking action, speaking, or whatever. And I just want to take 1 minute from this too, where this practice ends up in one way being very valuable in a business, in your role on a team, is building the ability to hear what's happening underneath what everybody's saying. That noise, right? And the skill that you start building, one, trusting yourself to be discerning in those moments. What am I really hearing here? What are we saying when I hear these collective voices? And you will build the ability to hear more underneath that by doing this practice for yourself personally. And that's a place that you can then trust a way to then be like, hey, I'm wondering this out into a meeting. So there's so many levels once you have a better sense of yourself
Mm-hmm.
and how your inner wisdom comes forward, and building that self-trust starts creating that environment that is safer for others and ways that you can bring your authentic perspective into the work that you do in whatever relationship you are, in whatever you're doing in your life.
Love it. Yeah. And when we get to bring our authentic perspective into our relationships, into our work, this just feels so much better. It's such a better experience in how to go through your day, in how to go through work, in how we're going through everything. So it may still be feel life and work and everything else may still have lots of challenges within it, but when we get to come at it in that way, the whole experience shifts because we get to be that grounded, authentic presence in how we show up.
Yeah. So interesting, the more you're grounded in your presence, right, the more flow you experience.
Yes. And I just want everyone to be able to have that different experience because I know life is so challenging. But I know that this other experience of the same life is available. I had a coaching call with a long time client earlier this week, and I was feeling so joyful just for her to be reflecting back facing the same scenarios in life with the same cast of characters, the same challenging boss, the same staff, the same industry, the same scenarios that occur, but really being able to see herself in the same scenarios, reacting and responding differently, holding herself differently, responding with grace, responding, with that inner wisdom guiding her, responding, with this earned wisdom, coming from this different place. And I just reflected how proud I was of her, of all the work that she's done to get to that different place where she could be that calm in the storm.
Mhm.
And so it's so great to get to see clients get to that space. And you don't change other people, but you change who you are and how you are about it, and it changes your whole experience, and it's just such a better way to go through it all. And when you can connect to your own inner wisdom, it really does give you this access to going through life differently.
Yeah. And the more you build that ability to be listening within for yourself, again, you can start hearing what others are saying too. You can listen deeper and be able to hold that pause in situations for others to self express, give more information so you can guide together that better interaction. So the focus on self does lead to the interaction with others. I was on a coaching call uh, recently, and there's a pattern supervisor and one of her employees, that she's like, how do I deal with it when this happens? Here's an example. This keeps happening. And it's like, well, once it's that point, other than confronting it, which is not going to be effective in this place, it's like you've got to come back and be ahead of it. So she has this cycle going on, and by the time it reaches the place of like where they end up all the time, it's we'd have to confront it. We'd have to be corrective, and that's not going to be productive in this relationship. And I said, well, one, there's not enough trust going on in this relationship. Build trust with yourself, do it differently ahead of that curve, and it's going to, just as you're saying, it's going to play out differently, and she's going to be able to hold a little bit more space there for the other person to not do their pattern either, right? They're going to show up differently eventually, but the focus is for her to build a bridge to take a different path, right? To
For
build a
her to
different
shift,
habit.
for her to
Yeah.
shift, for her to shift her behavior ahead of time, and in changing her behavior, it can shift how another person responds.
And if nothing else, it might create more safety so the other person can make other decisions, right? There's lots of ways that plays out. But again, it's sometimes with that outer focus, we're wanting, well, how do I take care of that? It's like, start here. Start here. And it does take practice. But that practice, as we said, brings greater fulfillment, allows things to flow. And generally, it's going to start clearing that path you're looking for, what to decide next, what from little decisions to big decisions. Sometimes that cloudiness is just that you need to bring more presence and trust to your inner guidance, your intuition.
So what I hear there is one of the number one spiritual teachings, and the knowing that you cannot change other people, but you can look for where you can change yourself, where you can grow, and look for where you can shift what you are doing, where you can be a positive influence and impact, where you can shift how you are showing up. Because no matter what you do, you cannot change other people, which is the same thing that my older client came to realize was, for years, she tried to change her CEO, and only in accepting that her business partner was how they were, was a lot of freedom and a whole new way forward, right? Was allowing another human being to be exactly how they are, and knowing that that is not the way to your freedom, the way to your best impact in life is worrying about changing another person. That won't get you there. Working on yourself, developing your own intuition, inner wisdom, and finding your way forward is your path.
That is the path.
All right. Anything else before we head out for the day, Barbara?
No, thanks for the conversation, Heather. And it's a great reminder to look at our habits, look at, what's happening and what's one thing that any of us can choose to focus on and practice that listening and discernment to make that difference. And so I just invite everybody to experiment with that, take that on as an invitation
Yes.
um, to make change for yourself.
Yes, like Barbara said, take on that invitation to strengthen your relationship to your intuition. Start today for the next 30 days. Build your habit of listening within. Let us know how it's going in the comments below this video. And if you'd like any support, you can reach out via our website for a discovery call with Barbara or myself. We'd be very happy to support you on your journey and help you deepen your connection to your intuition. I'm cheering you on, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episode.